When Ken Niumatalolo took over San Jose State, I don't know if there were a ton of people that expected things to go the way it did. Now, there's still room for growth for sure, but when you come from Navy, where you run primarily triple option and only really run the ball, I think there was some skepticism about what he could do in an offense that had more options. Today, we take a look at how he can make that improve in 2025. We take a look at the best players on this team, and we also take a look at the schedule and what we should expect from San Jose State in 2025. We're actually going to start on the defense, and when you look at what Ken Niumatalolo has been able to do, some of his defenses have been lights out, and I'm not going to say that San Jose State will have a lights out defense, but Jordan Pollard's return makes them really fun to watch. In fact, this front seven could be one of the better groups in the Mountain West, and Jordan Pollard is an absolute tackling machine. 115 tackles, 14 tackles for loss. He is a big reason why this defense had success in 2024, and it's a big reason why they should improve in 2025. His partner on the other side, Taniela Alatu, is another guy that will have a pretty good season, and he had a good season last year. 70 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 1 fumble recovery. These two are so good at what they do. Now they have that experience where they can communicate. They understand where each other is going to be, what the calls are. That's huge for a group that, again, this defense wasn't anything elite. They were really good at being disruptive, and getting tackles for loss and sacks. But overall, I think there was definitely stuff that left to be desired. And I think that taking some of the hits that they took when Brent Brennan left had something to do with that. That being said, this group I think is going to be really fun because of that disruption. They have the ability to make plays. They have the ability to slow down an offense, and the linebackers are going to be a huge reason why that happens. Now the offense, and we're going to talk about the quarterback. And when you think about a Ken Niumatalolo quarterback, you automatically assume triple option. I think a lot of people do, but Walker Eget is going to be kind of the opposite. You have a guy who's really going to throw the ball way more than he's going to run, and I think that he has a lot of potential. There was a competition last year between him and Emmett Brown. Obviously, Brown hits the transfer portal, and it's going to be Walker Eget's show. 2,500 yards last year, 13 touchdowns. You'd like him, obviously, to reduce those interceptions from 10, maybe into those single digits, would make tremendous strides. Now, he will have to find a new go-to target. And actually, he lost his top 3 targets from last year, so he'll have to find someone new that can step up in a big way. But if San Jose State wants to have the success that they've seen in the past, their quarterback is going to have to do that. Part of me was curious if Niumatalolo was disappointed, or part of him really hurt that his rush offense was 131st last year. That's not something that we're used to seeing. And I know in the end, he's going to be okay with however he needs to coach his team. I think the triple option kind of put him in a corner, and it's just taking the rest of us some time to get used to that. But Floyd Chalk can have a pretty good year for San Jose State. This rushing attack can be so much better than it was in 2024. I think you have a good combination in the backfield. Floyd Chalk is going to be one of those guys. 721 yards, 10 touchdowns. So while the rushing attack as a whole wasn't exactly great, they did have a go-to guy that produced, and they should be a better group in 2025. They have a good group of returnees. They have 3 guys that could be in a rotation, and it's just a matter of how do they get better. Part of that has to do with who's up front, but they do return some good talent at the running back position. We talked about that go-to guy in the passing attack. Matthew Coleman gets an opportunity to step up in a big way. When you lose Nick Nash and Justin Lockhart, you figured that you were going to have to find someone new. A lot of people thought Trayshawn Hurry was going to be that guy, but he hits the transfer portal, and now they're kind of starting from square one. Fortunately, Matthew Coleman comes back with 34 catches, 401 yards, and 2 touchdowns. You figure those numbers are only going to increase due to the fact that he is the go-to guy. He is the most experienced player coming back, and that's new opportunities for a lot of guys. So not only is it just on Coleman, there are other players that can step up. We'll talk about another one here in just a little bit, But the passing attack to me shouldn't take a huge step back because there is some players that can come back and make a bigger impact this year. The secondary is another group that kind of took a big hit. You lose Michael Dansby, you lose Robert Rahimi, you lose DJ Harvey. So you lose 3 of your starters in that secondary. However, Isaiah Rivas does come back, and that's huge, especially for a group that finished 91st. I think you're going to have to find guys that can step up in a big way. And I think the concern is, do they take a step back from 91st? That would be the real big concern. But Isaiah Rivas knows what to do when the ball's in the air. Also made quite a bit of plays in terms of 72 tackles, 7 tackles for loss. You obviously like to see your safety make a few less plays. You don't want to see him being super productive unless he's being extremely disruptive. You don't want to see that production because that means that the front seven is not doing its job. The linebackers and the defensive line are letting plays leak into the third level, and that's problematic. But having a guy like Rivas gives you that veteran that knows how to get guys in position and potentially help this group a lot more. Noah McNeil Franklin has a great opportunity ahead of him because everyone kind of knows who Pollard and Latu are, and not a lot of people know his name. But this is a guy who had 53 tackles last year, 4 tackles for loss. So you're looking at a linebacker group that is pretty solid in terms of experience. Now, you do have to elevate your game. You have to elevate some of the guys around you, but the linebacker position feels like it's in good hands, and McNeil Franklin is going to be a guy that could have a breakout year. And then part of that, it has to do with the guys up front. You do lose quite a bit of talent over the last couple of years, and returning someone like Gafafaga is going to be a huge returnee for you. The fact that he comes back makes things a little bit less tiresome, if you will, and he is someone that could step up in a big way, especially with the position he plays. 46 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, which on the interior defensive line is pretty good. The fact that you get that kind of production could help the linebackers improve when that's already going to be a really good group, but it also helps the secondary that's going to feature a lot of new faces. That other target we talked about, Jackson Kanan, another guy that could be a reliable pass catcher for Walker Eget and that passing attack. 314 yards last year, 2 touchdowns. I think that he'll be potentially exciting for this San Jose State offense. He's kind of more of that Y tight end, if you will, so more of that wide receiver pass catching tight end at 6'2", 227 pounds, but that means that he can make plays. And this is a group that finished 5th in passing, and they might take a step back. Maybe this is a more balanced offense, but you do have some options returning that are really exciting. And another linebacker we'll talk about is Ethan Powell. Ethan Powell had a solid season as well. So this is a group that, again, is very talented, very experienced, and 43 tackles and 5 tackles for loss is going to get you on the field quite a bit. And the fact that this group has all 4 of those linebackers returning speaks about the potential they could have in 2025. Maybe not the most well put together group in terms of experience, but there's time to sort things out. There's time to find new defensive linemen. There's time to find 2 corners and a safety. So you feel like you have a good core in place defensively. And especially for a group that is looking to take a step forward, if they can do that, and even with the offense trying to figure things out, San Jose State should be in good hands. Now, while there's not an over and under set right now for San Jose State, I think that 8 is still a solid number. You go 7-6. I could see how people maybe say 7, 7.5, 6.5. But this schedule does them quite a few favors. And obviously there's certain things that they have to sort out. But to me, I have the ceiling at 10-2. I think that this is a schedule that bodes well for them. They're obviously not beating Texas. In no world are they beating Texas. And even if things are going right, I do think they lose one more game. It's, that you have Fresno State on the schedule. San Diego State could be better. Hawaii, Utah State, those are teams that could be improved. Stanford is a Power 4 team that is going through a lot of transition, but that's still going to be a tough game. So in an ideal world, you're probably losing 2 games still. The floor to me, though, is 7-5. There's still plenty of good pieces. I think that defense does take a step forward. The offense, to me, does get a little bit more balanced. You do have your returning quarterback. So there's a lot of key pieces coming back that make you optimistic about the future for this team. So I think that you're somewhere in that range. Now, if things fall off, I still think 7-5 is going to be that floor, but that's what you get with Ken Niumatalolo. You're going to have those seasons where it doesn't feel great, but you still manage to go to a bowl. You maybe win 7 games. And that's the kind of consistency that this team could have with him running the show. I think that this is still a really interesting offense. It'll be interesting to see if the rushing attack takes over a little bit more or if the passing attack continues doing what it's doing. It was very surprising last year. I don't think a lot of people knew what to expect. And now that they do, there are still, I think, some more surprises that he has up his sleeve.